Okay, story time. I don't know if I'll put this on TikTok or not, but I'm going to put it on here. 'Cause it's less likely my family will see it. Although they know the situation, so I don't know why I care. Anyway, I just got home yesterday from being in the hospital for a few days. I had, or still have, I guess, I have to take antibiotics for a really bad UTI. Like, it made me very sick. Again, this happened back in June when I had the stones, too. Um, so they were worried I'd go septic, blah, blah, blah. So I was in the hospital for a few days. And um, the day before yesterday, I stayed in the bed for all day because I did not feel well. I had a headache and a fever that kept coming and going all day long. No matter what, they kept giving me Tylenol. Did not help. Um, I think it would just like mask the fever. It didn't really lower the fever or anything like that. So yesterday I woke up and I felt much better. Um, so I decided I wanted to transfer to like a chair or something. So, student nurse comes in. At first, she helped me. My machine was beeping because my tubing got kinked. I think when I went to make a phone call to order breakfast, because I used my IV arm, but it was like way up in my arm, so I didn't think it would affect it, but apparently it did. So she fixed that, and then she came back a minute later and asked me if I needed anything. I said, "Yeah, can we transfer so that I can be like properly sitting up instead of like the weird sitting up that you are when you're in a hospital bed." It's not the same. It isn't the same. Um, so she's like, "Yeah, sure." And you get me sitting up and on the edge of the bed, which is so freaking hard to do. My butt was like in this little dip. I couldn't wiggle very much to save my own life. Um, so I said, "Hey, can you get something out of my bag that I can put on before I stand up?" And she's like, "Sure." And while she's doing that, and I don't have my shoes on at this point. That should have been the first thing we did was put my shoes on. That isn't my bad. I wasn't put down as a fall risk at this point, so she didn't consider it, and so that's not her fault. Um, I should have said, "Hey, let's put my braces and my shoes on first, and then scoot to the edge, and then get the thing out of my bag." So she's doing that. She's getting the thing out of my bag, and I can feel myself slipping, and I'm like, I'm slipping. I'm sliding. I'm slowly sliding off the edge of I'm trying to scoot myself back up. I cannot do it. She's this teeny little thing, so she cannot do it. Before I know it, I'm like, I'm just gonna let it be and let myself be lowered to the floor. I didn't fall. I slowly slid off the bed. I want to point that out. I did not fall. At that point, she called in, I think is a couple of other student nurses, and they're all standing around me trying to troubleshoot what to do. They wanted to use the gait belt, but I would need to be able to put my feet flat, like bend my knees and put my feet flat on the floor. Um, my socks were really slippery, which was probably part of the problem because once they did touch the floor when I was slipping, there's nothing I couldn't grip at all. So I was just like, you know what? Why don't we do what I usually do if I do find myself in this position, which I do occasionally, not often. I don't fall often, but occasionally, if I do, I just get on all fours and crawl to the nearest piece of furniture and pull myself up. It really hurts my knees. It's not pleasant, but what are you going to do? So we agreed to do that. They get me to this couch, which is along the window to the room. And this other nurse is like above the other nurses that are already in there. She comes in to check on the situation. She asks me like a million times if I was okay. I was fine. By the time I got up, my knees were not hurting or anything like that. I think it aggravated my shoulder a little bit, but not very much. Like I had one instance where I reached for something and it was painful, but after that, it like corrected itself. They had to check my blood pressure every 15 minutes for like a couple of hours after. And my temperature, they just threw that in, I guess. Um, the poor student nurse, the first one, I was so bad. It was not her fault. It was not a good start to her day, and I feel so bad. Uh, so then I decided I wanted to be in this other chair. Um, So they transferred me to that, but then I'm in chair jail for the rest of the day because they put an alarm on it and put fall wrist bracelet on my arm. So embarrassing. I hated the idea of having to like turn over on all fours because at that point I didn't have underwear on. That's the thing I was asking her to get out of my book bag. So when I turned over, I was just bearing all these nurses, which is nothing new to them, but still, if I can avoid them having to see that, I will. I was trying really hard not to have that happen, but it didn't. It just, oh my god. But yeah, that was the start to my day and those nurses' day. So, because the two that she had called in to help hadn't seen their patients yet because they hadn't woken up yet, so they were like, they hadn't really done, they're like, well, they probably did vitals and everything, just they were sleeping, but they hadn't really like talked to their patients yet, so their day hadn't really started yet. So I was the start to their day. This I feel so bad, and I can't wait to get a survey and 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 tell them that they were great. They did nothing wrong, including the first one. Ugh. It wasn't how I saw my morning going, but I got a workout out of it. There's that. Oh, yeah, and then my dad came and sat with me for like hours. And at one point, he came in to ask me if I wanted a bath, and I said, yeah. And that's when my dad left because we decided, we're probably just going to be sitting around all day waiting for them to get the cultures back. A couple hours after he leaves, they're like, do you want to go home today? So he had been to Lowe's and had like a ton of pipes or whatever in the car, so there was no room for me. So and we live an hour away from this hospital, so he had to go home, take the pipes home, and he waited a little bit because I hadn't actually gotten a definitive answer if they were going to discharge me or not. So it's like, let me call you when I know something. So he waited until then, and then I there's this woman that handled all the discharge stuff that I would be dealing with afterwards. I have to have wound care come out for my wound care now. It's gonna be fun telling my actual wound care doctor. This other lady overrid all of your information, all of your instructions, and she wants me to do this instead of what you want me to do. That'll be a fun conversation. So she came in and mentioned that they had started my discharge stuff. So I called my parents back. And then we waited and waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. My dad, he came back. And nothing happened. And I looked, and some stuff was signed. It looked like my discharge had been started. But we hadn't heard anything. And before my dad even got there, the one nurse that I had, not the student nurse, my nurse, she came in. She's great. Her name is Paula. And she asked me what time I wanted to be picked up. I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know when I'm being discharged. I'm very confused. So she called mom and dad and asked them. They called me confused. I was confused. I'm like, I don't understand. It seems like their procedure for discharge is a little different at that hospital, which is fine. It was very confusing. But yeah, we finally got to leave around 6:30 in the evening. Got home. I don't know, it would be 7:30. Stopped and got something to eat on the way home. So yeah. Oh, I scared my niece in the process. Before we left for the year, mom took me, and I couldn't find my thermometer. I felt like I was on fire that first night. I couldn't find my thermometer, so she sent my niece over with hers. And it's one of those, you just like run it over your forehead. She comes in, my niece, and she hands me the thermometer, and I try to ask her to go get a Tupperware container because I feel like I'm gonna throw up at that point. I'd just been nauseous the whole time until that point. And as I'm saying it, I throw up. And next thing I know, my niece is gone. I didn't see her. She didn't come back. She didn't give me a Tupperware container. She just went home next door. Poor thing. I texted my sister on the way to the ER. Tell Paige I'm sorry if I freaked her out. She's like, you didn't. She was just worried about you. Sweet. Oh, and I love nieces and nephews that have cell phones all messaged me. My older nephew, I still don't understand what he was trying to tell me. This is something about my mom will call me tomorrow, which is today. I don't know what he was trying to say. Why? It did make sense. And then my older nieces both messaged me at different times that they love me, they were thinking about me, blah blah blah. I couldn't wait for me to get home. It's really sweet. I love that. So yeah, it's not the way my week was supposed to go. I was supposed to have 2 appointments. This day I got sick was the day before a catheter change appointment. And it started out with a headache. And I was like, it's fine. I'll just have them test my urine when I get there tomorrow. Which would have been Tuesday. It's Friday now? Thursday? It's Thursday. So, once I got admitted from the ER, I told them, hey, I am supposed to have a catheter changed tomorrow at the North building, which was right next door to where the main hospital was. They were like, okay, well, we'll call the doctor and get that set up. And he came down and he did the catheter change, and he actually sized me up from a 14 to a 16. That's fantastic. Wonderful if I can get back up to a 20 at some point. So I have a box of 20 catheters that I bought so that if I ever have to go to the ER and they want to change up my catheter, I can just, or even just the hospital, because sometimes they can't find the right size. I can just go, here, this is it. Just go get a kit, and here's the catheter. So the last time I was in the hospital, they changed it out, but they couldn't get the right size back in. So I got downsized to a 14. So I'm like, I have this box of 20s and I don't know what I'm gonna do. So hopefully I can actually get back up to a 20. I'm sitting here, it's past 10 o'clock, and I really need to get moving because nobody cleaned the kitchen while I was gone. So, yeah, I gotta do that. I think there's something else. Dad has my storage unit check. I'm gonna do that. See if he did that, because he had it. Or did he put it in my book bag? I'll figure it out. Because I gotta pay that. So many things. We're supposed to go differently this week. We gotta figure out when's a good time to reschedule wound care. Okay. Lots to do. But yeah, that was my week.